Has it started? I think so.
Yeah.
Yes. Hi, Annie.
Hey Alice, how are you?
I'm good. How you going?
Yeah, pretty good. Just in lockdown,
Yeah, fun times. Thanks for joining me on Zoom.
Thanks for having me.
So you were our first artist for Artist and Alice, and you're a singer-songwriter, and you did two songs for us. Can you kind of tell me your experience and what your two songs are?
Sure. Well, it was really fun, obviously. Just went over to Alice's house, and it's the first time I'd properly recorded my songs, really, honestly, probably like performed them, sang them to people, other than a couple. So it was pretty cool. It was great we did a lot of takes, which was good to kind of get it right. And yeah, because the two songs are really different, obviously, in terms of vibe, and kind of everything. One of them, the first one we did was the more recent one I'd written. And yeah, it was on guitar. It was like tried we tried the other song on both guitar and piano, which was fun to kind of test out the different vibes. But this one was definitely straight up guitar. We smashed it out. And then the second one had like a lot more kind of experimentation, because I'd written it a little longer ago, and like I'd rewritten some of it for recording. Like there's a bit more, touch and go.
Yeah.
So it was good to have those two experiences of like one really solid and then one where we like kind of worked on it a bit more together, which was really cool.
Yeah, for sure. No, it was a lot of fun, and thank you for being my first artist. That was
It
really
was so
exciting.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah, and so obviously growing up, you kind of were really heavily into the singing songwriting, and like there was probably a part of you that was like, this is what I'm going to do in life. I'm going to, be on stage.
For sure.
But then obviously after high school, you decided to study. Please do tell.
I study international and global studies at Sydney Uni, final year. And I guess I definitely, in my childhood, I was really keen to pursue music or acting or something artistic. But as I finished high school, I started to get really passionate about actually like social issues. I got really into activism and social justice, which kind of led into naturally a bit more of a focus into world issues and I guess more of an academic focus of that, because I was always a bit of a nerd at school, and so
you are.
And so I guess that passion kind of led me into international studies, because that's definitely looking at kind of world issues and world events. And
yeah, for sure. In terms of like how art and issues can kind of come together as one, do you feel like there's ever been a time, obviously a lot of your songs are about love and like heartbreak, but do you feel like that an issue that you're passionate about has kind of fallen into your singing songwriting, or is there any correlation?
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe not explicitly like you might expect. I don't have a song about like, some conflict. But I guess what that makes me think of is, I think particularly for like LGBT, I mean, my songs aren't too explicit, but I think you can tell by like earrings being one of them, and like just I think there's almost hints in the ones we recorded, at least, that the songs are about women, and I think that is really important to have like representation in that way, rather than having a song that's necessarily about, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's great to have songs, more than great to have songs about like struggles of LGBT people, and like there's a lot of great like queer songs about I'm thinking of like Hope D has that song Swim, which is like really great, would recommend. Then it's all about like I guess her like really real struggles with like coming out and accepting her sexuality, and the kind of intensity of that, and that's amazing. And I also think equally it's important to have songs which have female pronouns in them, or implied female, like a woman singing about a woman without it being a big deal, and just having that as like it's a love song and it doesn't matter, but you know that it's about another girl, and that's just like fine and kind of doesn't need to be a big deal. And I think having both of those things is really important.
I agree. I think having a combination of kind of a really overtly political song that's trying to be like, you know, LGBTQ, this is, you know, something that we experience, these are the issues that we go through. Whereas like having songs that just normalize, I'm just in love with this person and I'm writing about that experience and not focusing on the experiences of just being a gay or lesbian woman. Like I feel like it's just kind of, I agree that the combination is a lot more powerful than just one or the other.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, obviously I'm thinking for someone who might not be out, or they might not be accepted by their family or something like that, especially for a young person. It's great to have those affirming songs where you're like, yeah, this is, you know, valid, and my experiences are like hard, but I can get through it. But it's also, you know, you could play a song with a subtle female pronoun in it or a subtle female reference with your family around, and have that, and not have it be questioned, and not have it be a big deal. If you're not out to them, you know, I'm just thinking like as a young, even with my family, who Alice knows are like the best, and you know, were super accepting and great. Even when I wasn't out, it was still like powerful for me to have like play a song in the car and be like, yeah, this is, catch that pronoun, you probably missed it. So I think that like that experience is also important.
Oh, definitely. In terms of when you were young and you were writing love songs, because I remember you always telling me like you would come up with your own T Swift song that was about like some boyfriend that you didn't have.
Yeah.
Was there a period where it was like you were writing about these boyfriends, but then it kind of was like, I'm never gonna have a boyfriend? Like, was there that kind of click moment of like, I'm going to stop writing about boys and start writing about girls? Like, surely there must have been like a
moment where I was like, this isn't right. Well, I was writing about boys when I was 10 to 11. And so at that point I was like, yeah, this is real. This boy in year 5 doesn't like me back, and it's heartbreaking. And then I kind of stopped writing songs for like probably when of the ages of like 13 to like 15 maybe. I wrote a lot of, interestingly, when I was like 12, I wrote a lot of friendship songs, which looking back I'm like, that's pretty gay, like to be writing like really sad songs about like my best friend in year 7. I'm like, okay, like let's relax.
You were trying to express your identity, but through friendship.
Yeah, I was like, I don't have anyone real to write this about. And so then by the time I was writing songs more kind of legitimately was only really a few years ago. And so then I was clearly transitioned quite easily into writing about girls.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Do you feel like in terms of songs like by like famous singers, songwriters, I mean, I feel like personally, but maybe this is just me, it was kind of like a gradual thing. Is like as I got older, I started to notice more people like singing about like their girlfriend experience and all that kind of stuff. But when I was younger, like I never heard like songs about, or if I did, it was like in a kind of like a hypersexualized sense,
I
like,
Kissed a Girl, or
by Katy Perry. I mean, which is a great catchy song,
a great song.
It's more talking about like, you know, I kissed a girl when I was drunk and I liked it, but it's
and my
not
boyfriend
like
doesn't mind it. Like,
it's not like a deep emotional like connection
or even
with
just
a
like,
woman.
Yeah, and even with like with that song, which I love. I mean, but like even with it being, not all queer songs need to be like, you know, deep. You know, I think it's fun, but I think also like it really plays into these harmful stereotypes at the same time. Like, you know, I don't want to sound like it's that deep, but I do think that like there is, when that song came out, like what that was like 2010, like maybe late 2000s, and and like there was this definite, you know, thing of like, oh well, this sexualization, fetishization of like queer women, particularly bisexual women, like the whole issue of like they're just doing it for attention, and like it's not cheating if it's with a girl, like these weird stereotypes that I think like those kinds of songs play into. And like the fact that it's Katy Perry, who's kind of, you know, is straight. I mean, from what I know, not to assume Katy Perry's sexuality, but, you know, like it's, I think now the great thing that I've seen, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that, probably also because of like Spotify, things making music more, you can access like smaller artists like more easily, and then also just general vibes of changing times. I think that has meant that there's a lot of actual queer artists making the songs for queer people, rather than it being like the songs that are kind of like for the community are actually made by straight people.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, because it's kind of like the same thing where it's like if it's not made by people who have actually lived those experiences, it's a lot harder for people who are actually experiencing it to feel connected to that music. And it's like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a really important point to make. In terms of the issues around LGBTQ and stuff, like, is there something in particular that you feel really passionate about?
I guess for me, I think it's really important to connect in your mind the links between what we may see as really not a big deal, or like, you know, just maybe it's dismissing someone's identity, maybe it's using the wrong pronouns for someone who's trans or non-binary, or maybe, you know, something you might think as like, oh, that was a mistake, or that was really little, that's just like day to day, and how that connects to bigger issues. Like if you look at LGBT people young people are way more likely to be homeless in their lives. They're incredibly more likely to have mental health issues, particularly trans people, and particularly LGBT people of color. And so I think those two for me, in terms of the homelessness and mental health, are the ones that really stick out for me in terms of how things are linked from the day to day to like the bigger issues that we may feel like, oh, that doesn't really affect me. Like, yeah, like that sucks that, you know, people are homeless, but that's not actually part of my, you know, my world. But it is. And when you look at, like, you might hear someone say like, oh yeah, my parents were a bit weird about me coming out, and you might think like, oh yeah, that's a shame, but like, you know, at least they're okay. And it's like, that's what leads to people being homeless, or like, you know, we can't just accept people being a little bit weird about it, you know. Like, that stuff is actually like has really real impact for people, and it's why, you know, it's why these statistics, you know, are a real thing.
Yeah, I definitely think minimizing comments like, oh, like they're a bit weird about it, or we don't really talk about it, like they kind of, it's just like you're kind of downplaying something that's huge to someone's identity. And if someone doesn't feel like they're accepted on a 100% deep level, then obviously there's always going to be that part of them that goes down a maybe not so great road, because they don't have that 100% acceptance from the people around them. So it's very true that minimizing those things is not good.
Yeah. And I think also, like, you know, if you with your friends especially, like I think that's where most young people will obviously encounter, like, you know, other LGBT people, or just if you're straight, LGBT people in general. And I think that, like, actually checking in, like, you know, especially, you know, this coming out is really hard. And even for me, with my family who are great, like, it's still a really hard thing. And so I think, like, if, you know, and when I say young people, I don't just mean like teenagers, like this is still really hard as a young adult. And I think, like, you know, checking in with people, making sure they're okay. And, you know, this stuff isn't just for people who have really terrible experiences coming out. Like, grappling with your identity is really hard, and that leads to mental health, you know, concerns or struggles, because, you know, you're dealing with who you are and you're dealing with these really hard questions, and it's really important to have a strong support network around you. So I guess, yeah, I think I would really emphasize for young people to kind of look out for the people around them.
Yeah, for sure. In terms of taking action, I mean, I remember, God, I don't even remember what year this was, but when we did
We're at Purple Party?
I remember, you can go into that more.
No,
I
fine.
completely
what were
forgot
you
about
talking
that.
about?
Also, when we went to the protest for the gay marriage thing.
Oh yeah.
What year was that?
That must have been 2017, because we had marriage equality at the end of 2017. I feel like we were all talking about uni and stuff when that was happening. It must have been 2017.
Yeah. So I remember that day being really massive and like huge in Sydney, and like that was just, the turnout for that was just huge. Again, in terms of taking action, can you tell me a bit about the Purple Party and when you did that?
That was fun. We were in year 11, I think. And I worked with the Chatswood Youth Centre to organise. I was really, we were pretty young. We were 16 really, and I remember really wanting to go to Mardi Gras, and my parents were like, "You're not going to Mardi Gras, like you're 16, and it's just like an insane party of people drinking, which
pretty
is
much.
fair, is that it's really intense." And they were like, "You can't go to that," but I really wanted. I'd only come out the year before. I really wanted to like be part of the community and feel like I was part of something. And so with the Chatswood Youth Centre, I was doing this leadership program, and so I worked with the Chatswood Youth Centre to kind of do this Wear It Purple party for Wear It Purple Day, which is like a day where you're supposed to wear purple, and it's show your support for the LGBT community. And we like invited, it was pretty big. I don't really remember how many people came, but it was busy. Yeah. And everyone wore rainbow. It was very cool. I don't even remember. I'm sure I wasn't, like, no one was drinking, I don't think, at least not there.
No, I don't think so. Because it was a youth centre, so I don't think
it was. But I just mean, like, it didn't have the same vibe as like, oh, we'll like, drink in the park beforehand. Like,
it wasn't Mardi Gras, but in terms of taking the initiative to be like, you know what, I've come out recently, I want to celebrate, I want to see peers celebrate with me. I think it was a good initiative. Yeah, safe space as well. And you partnered with, like, obviously the youth centre, so it was kind of like helping you out as like a 15-year-old trying to.
They're the only way I could do it.
Yeah. In terms of, are there any like petitions or charities that you feel are really important to be a part of as well?
Well, in terms of charities, there are a couple that come to mind. 2010 is really good. They're an Australian-wide service. They do a whole lot of different stuff for queer young people. They particularly focus on like housing, offering housing to young people, as well as like a lot of mental health stuff. They're really great and do good things. So I'd recommend checking them out. Also Black Rainbow focus on Indigenous LGBT youth. So again, would recommend checking them out for that specific stuff. In terms of petitions, I mean, I don't think it's active anymore, but it's not resolved the issue. So I will, in New South Wales, there's been a couple issues with One Nation, who have been proposing, well, Mark Latham proposed a couple bills, one of them being to stop or to hinder schools teaching LGBT health and issues. And yeah, part of it is literally denying trans, like gender people existing or gender diverse people existing, and teaching gender as a binary, which is so damaging. Like it's really, I mean, it's really horrific stuff. There was a petition going around a while ago. I did check, and I think it's closed, but I don't think the bill has been gotten rid of completely. So I'd say keep your eye out for that. And yeah, there's other issues with religious freedoms bills, which, like, obviously religious freedom is incredibly important, but it shouldn't be at the expense of like LGBT people's ability to be safe and not have their identity be denied by people, or by, being denied of services and things because of their identity. So yeah, there's always someone trying to push through something bad.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
And it is New South Wales, and like, it's not just something that happens elsewhere. So keep your eye out.
Will do. And do you feel like because of the experiences you've had as a gay woman, and how you've kind of the opportunity to actually be surrounded by people who support you and love you no matter what, do you feel like that's given you the ability to kind of be able to like speak up and like take action in a sense, because you're kind of able to put others in front of yourself in terms of, what your privilege is kind of giving you?
Absolutely. Definitely. I'm very privileged. I think not only because, my family has been super accepting, which you know, I can't, it's really hard to divorce that from class as well, like not to bring that into it, but like, you know, the fact that, yeah, there's just there's an influence from that perspective as well. Also as a white woman and also as a feminine presenting lesbian, like that puts me in a very different position than a lot of other people, like, because I can, like, if I'm talking about this and I don't mention that I'm queer, a lot of people would think that I'm just a great ally, you know, like, or a lot of people assume that maybe I'm bi, you know, like which then has that whole really biphobic response of like, I shall just end up with a man. Like, you know, there's a lot of privilege that I have in presenting the way I do, and not kind of looking too gay or anything like that, because that comes with a whole other, like a whole other thing, which I've never experienced and probably never will.
I didn't need, like, it's so weird because like you just don't even consider all those factors of like looking more feminine and looking less queer.
It's like, yeah, absolutely. I like can exist much more safely, but then also there's a flip side of that, and of feeling like, I mean, you're not really gay enough. Like that's definitely something that I know a lot of feminine people.
Have you ever faced that?
Yeah, I think definitely when I was younger, especially when I was struggling with my sexuality, I was like, but I don't look like Ellen DeGeneres, or like, you know, and I don't want to, and like, I don't understand, like, you know, how to be more like queer. Like this is just who I am, and I like that. And then I think also it's hard because when you don't look gay, people think they can say things, homophobic things around you, because they don't think that that's an issue, or you know, they feel just a bit more comfortable to say things that actually are really hurtful or offensive, or just to make assumptions which aren't necessarily hurtful, because I think that's totally fair. You know, people just act, you know, people believe what society teaches them, and people get taught that girls have boyfriends unless they have short hair. And so it's maybe not harmful to me, at least. I never really take offense if somebody just looks at me and assumes and says something like, oh, like, do you have a boyfriend, or like, what's going on with boys in your life, stuff like that. I'm not offended by that, but it does create like an awkwardness or like a barrier in conversation, because then you have to be like, oh no, I'm gay, and then they always get really like upset, or they get like worried that they've offended me, which then I have to be like, no, it's fine. And then it's like a really awkward interaction, because when it's really not a big deal, like they just wanted to know what my love life is, you know. Like
there's that clear difference between someone just being slightly unaware and then someone actually intentionally being homophobic
and I'm
saying something that's horrible. And you know, as I've kind of told you already, I'm really trying to create Artists and Alice to kind of be more an awareness and taking action kind of project, and merging art with issues around the world, whatever they may be, and whatever the artist is really passionate about. And I thank you for being part of it. And basically what's going to happen with Annie and the artist moving forward is that me and Acid Lake, which is a brand by Michaela Jenkinson who creates these shirts, we're basically coming together and we're going to create a number of shirts that will have something related to each issue that an artist will present. And the money that we raise from selling those t-shirts, 100% of the profits will go to a charity that we kind of agree on and that the artist is really passionate about. So I'm really excited for you to be a part of that.
Exciting. I'm really excited. That's going to be great.
Yeah. So thank you for listening, guys, and keep a lookout for those t-shirts that are coming. So
thanks, guys. Thanks, Alice.
See ya.